Hello everybody, this is Dr. Novak. I decided to give you a little quick update before I get into the Q&A that somebody asked me a question on. His name was Scott. Anyhow, if you remember over about a month and a half ago, I started a little experiment. I potted up some plants in clay pots and they were crypt, and I also potted up a plant in an open cell basket. Uh, One of the plants is potted up in a clay pot with Miracle-Gro potting soil. The stones were added to the bottom of the clay pot, then Miracle-Gro without being cleaned or anything, and then the crypt was put right in there and then some stones on top. The reason it was done this way, because this is how you would have done it in an aquarium. Most people would have just made a substrate on the bottom, added dirt to the aquarium, and then another substrate on top, and put the plants in. So that's why it was put into a clay pot, to simulate that of an aquarium, where the other pot was to show kitty litter, but that pot's not doing real good because I added some iron and stuff to it, and it had nitrates in it, and because of that, the plant seems to be disintegrating, because that's my fault though. So that part of the experiment went sour, 100% my fault. I did something wrong on that pot, and I'm just trying to see if that plant is going to recover or not, but that will take time. But it actually had crypt rot, but like I said, that was my fault 100%. Then I made a third pot, open cell basket with kitty litter, no iron, no nothing, just kitty litter. So I thought, well, I'll give you a little update. Now, from what I can see, also I'm using CO2, but I'm not using CO2 at its full potential. It's just being added to the aquarium, but not at 30 parts per million. It's just added to the aquarium to help speed along the plant growth. But I want to show you the pictures. Like, here's a picture of the one crypt that's using the Miracle-Gro potty mix. And as you can see, it's doing pretty good after over a month and a half, and no complaints about it. And this is the way most hobbyists would use it. What is that? That Diane Wallstadt method of using dirt. So this is dirt that has a lot of nutrients in it to help the plant grow. However, when you look at the next picture here, this is the open cell basket with nothing but kitty litter. And as you notice, the growth rate of this plant is equal to or a little bit better than the growth rate of the pot. The pot is not open cell, it has a hole only on the bottom of it. And look at the plant growth on this one from this crypt with the open cell basket. There was no, like I said, there was no iron added to it. Iron is added weekly, and it's added twice a week. And the amount that is added is 1 milliliter twice a week of iron. And that's what's added to this aquarium to add iron supplement to both these plants. Like I said, the third plant had kitty litter, and I soaked the kitty litter in iron and everything, but the problem is it also had nitrogen in there. The crypt got the nitrogen, it went into shock, and it just started melting. But the other two, with the open cell basket and the potted one, seemed to do very well. They didn't go into any kind of shock. But this, so far what I'm seeing with the experiment is, do I see a vast improvement of actually planting plants in soil compared to just planting a plant in 100% kitty litter? And as you can see by the pictures, I'm sorry, I don't see any advantage of adding more nitrogen and more phosphates and everything to your substrate than I do if you just added baked kitty litter. This is the baked stuff. This is not the other stuff I got from Walmart, the kitty litter that turns into mush, like a mud. This is the baked stuff. It looks like little stones. But as you can see by the growth rate of both of them, one's not impressing me. The one that has the soil is not impressing me so much that I would say, wow, look at this huge difference with the nutrients that this plant has and available to it, plus CO2, is far superior than the basket that has nothing except kitty litter, and it's an open cell basket. We can relate this open cell basket, let's say, to a plenum, a slow-moving plenum, where nutrients are moving slowly through it. We know that the kitty litter is soaking up ions out of the aquarium that the guppies are in, and the iron that is in the aquarium that I put in there, that 1 milliliter twice a week from an eyedropper, we don't see a substantial difference in both of them. In fact, if anything, the one with the kitty litter looks a little better than the one without. But I'm not judging as far as that. What I'm judging is, do we see a vast improvement? I guess is what I'm saying. A big, vast improvement that, wow, using soil like the Wallstatt method made a huge difference. And so far, with over a month and a half of both plants, I'm not seeing it. But you could be the judge. And this is just an update. I'll keep you updated on the experiment as time goes on. Maybe another month and a half from now, I'll show you a picture of both plants, and you can decide, is it worth putting soil into an aquarium, into your substrate, to substantially improve plant growth? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it. But I do see that you're going to add nitrates and stuff like that. Is it because the plant has to do more work with that soil, converting nitrates into ammonia, which is what they do? Plants have to take the nitrates and convert it into ammonia, which is work. Where in the open cell, where the water is allowed to flow freely inside and where ions are allowed to be attracted by the kitty litter, the plant doesn't have to do any work. The ammonia comes in, the plant can utilize it immediately without converting it from nitrite to ammonia, which it can use for its amino acids and protein, because it does not use nitrates. So you be the judge. Okay, here we go with this part of the video on Scott's question. He has a couple of them. He had several, but I thought this one was interesting where we all should hear it. He states in his last paragraph, also, I was thinking about ORP values that I have seen in some of your previous videos. My local fish store have small shrimp habitats where they are keeping and are selling different purebred shrimp species. In the shrimp hobby, there seems to be a push for adding items such as lotus seeds, almond, banana, and other seed pods and leaves. I believe they are supposed to be a food source for the shrimp because they slowly rot away. It may be wonder if the slow rotting biologicals, even a large planted aquarium will have lots of decaying leaves, which is true, or if someone had a medium-sized fish like a rainbow or a cosmos die when you're on vacation, what kind of effect does the decay biologicals have on the ORP readings, and how rapidly does ORP change and how fast would it recover? Well, if you have enough of the oxidizers, it should not be a problem. Even in my aquarium, I've had fish go in the back somewhere and die. All of a sudden, it's like, where's that fish at? Disappeared. I bought some mollies, and one of the mollies disappeared. within the first week. Where did it go? It's nowhere in this. Where it was nowhere on the floor. It had to go somewhere and probably died, probably from stress. Couldn't get it. That's the name of the game. You had to make sure you have enough oxidizers to take care of the rotting wood, leaves, plants that are going to be rotting in the aquarium, and any dead fish that may go into a corner, dead shrimp that may wind up dying in your aquarium and you can't get them out. I think I've explained this before. Our aquariums should handle these insults. I'm not saying if a big, huge Oscar died in your aquarium, but I'm saying that smaller fish, a medium-sized fish or something, they get stuck somewhere. In fact, this happened to Dr. Franco over in Italy, where a goldfish got stuck in a pipe, and he did not know it, and it died. And the BCB baskets took care of everything. He didn't even know the fish was dead because there was no ammonia, no nitrites, no nitrates. He noticed nothing out of kilter. And yet, I think he said he was servicing one of the pipes, and there this goldfish, a good-sized goldfish, was jammed up in one of the pipes. And the only reason he noticed it because one of the pipes were flowing a little slow. How long was the fish dead? He really didn't know. But he was impressed with the fact that the fish had died, the water was recirculating, and the anoxy filter handled everything. And this is what happens. You have to have enough oxidizers. Now, he asks another question in here. If people are adding a bunch of almond leaves and other similar decaying items, is there anything one can do to offset or increase the ORP in an aquarium? And of course, that is a good question. That's why I thought everybody should hear it. Yes. One way to raise ORP is through oxygen or an oxygen reactor. But how many people are going to use an oxygen reactor, which is nothing but a reactor where there's oxygen coming in, being trickled over a medium of some sort, like plastic, and then oxygen is being pumped into it at about 5 psi, which is very low. And it saturates the water, impregnates the water with more oxygen, and that is one way to raise ORP. Another way is through the oxidation of, we use ozone. Ozone is something we don't use in our aquariums. Ozone is used, if you think about it, it's used in tubs, hot tubs, right? A lot of people use ultraviolet lights in their hot tub or ozone, and the reason that is because the ozone is an oxidizer and it will kill off bacteria that is unwanted at that 110 degrees or 105 degrees that you may have your hot tub at. So therefore they will use ozonizers to kill off, because you're not really growing bacteria or a lot of surface area for bacteria to grow on. And therefore you would need something like an oxidizer like ozone to kill off the bacteria. Makes sense, right? In our aquariums, we have a different situation. We can build a substrate, which is there to aid and facilitate the growing of bacteria. If it's done correctly, we can grow quite a lot of bacteria in that substrate and keep redox high. As I have said before, it's been tested that the redox, even in the plenum area, is still high enough so oxidizers can live. Therefore, if you put like an EHIM substrate underneath there, or another brand underneath there, a little bit of it, this will grow facultative bacteria because the redox is still high enough so these bacteria can oxidize. This is a trick that you have to remember. You also must remember when gravel is put at the very bottom of an aquarium and it's thick, what happens is if you have no oxygen at the bottom, you are not going to have oxidizers because you will go into negative redox. You cannot have a positive redox reading with no oxygen. You have to have some available oxygen to keep redox readings high enough to have oxidizers. No oxygen, no oxidizers, you start going into negative millivolt readings. And we all know that assimilatory denitrification means the breaking down of nitrogen or other products to ammonia. This is how we get crashes in our aquariums, where all of a sudden everything seems to be going fine. It could take a year. It could even take 2 years. All of a sudden the tank crashes, boom, ammonia levels get up to 5 parts per million, 3 parts per million, 4 parts per million. Boom, the whole aquarium crashes. Everything dies. Ammonia levels got too high. You're sitting at work. You don't know it. The fish and everything crashes in the aquarium. It's because you do not have enough oxidizers. Excuse me. You don't have enough oxidizers and enough oxygen. So when you make a plenum, a slow-moving plenum, the idea with it, as all manufacturers know, is to keep water moving very slowly, let oxygen levels drop very low, okay, as I explained to you about sewage treatment facilities or wastewater management facilities. I did a whole video on that, explaining that. As long as these become low, and that's what, 0.01 parts per million. There's still oxygen, but very low. Facultative bacteria take over, and they start stealing oxygen from an oxygen source that does exist in our substrates, which would be phosphates and nitrates. Anything that has an oxygen molecule stuck onto it, those bacteria will steal that oxygen to carry on their biological needs. Where when you lose all your oxygen, and some people would say, well, the oxygen is gone, but it's no, that means anoxic conditions, low oxygen. You have anoxic conditions, by the way, in your mouth, okay? So we need to live with these conditions, just like an aquarium or a pond needs to live with these conditions of low oxygen. And therefore, when fluids go through there and they're carrying some of these insults, that these oxidizers can attack it and utilize it as a food source. So if people are putting leaves and things like that, which I've seen, almond leaves, and they wind up putting lotus seeds and stuff like that in their aquariums, they have to make sure they have enough oxidizers to start breaking it down. Because once you put like wood in your aquarium, once you have plants in your aquarium, you're going to have decay. And you have to have enough oxidizers to raise the redox. And the only way to do that is providing surface area, food stuff with oxygen. Okay, that's how it's done in salt water. That's how it's done in fresh water. If you do not have those oxygen levels good enough or have the right bacteria, then you redox keeps dropping and dropping and dropping. Or you'll have a very low redox because you'll have not enough oxidizers to take care of the insults of which you put into the aquarium. It would be like, I'll give this an example. This is just an example, okay? It would be like if everything's going fine in your aquarium and you dumped a bottle of ammonia in there. Now, if you don't have enough oxidizers or no way of oxidizers to develop, you're going to wind up having a crash in your aquarium because it can't be taken care of. Where if these oxidizers see the extra ammonia, they can develop very quickly heterotrophic bacteria. They know this in sewage treatment facilities. These bacteria multiply in a few minutes' time, not in 24 hours' time, like the bacteria we use. The autotrophs that we use have 24-hour heterotrophs multiply within minutes, and they can double every so many minutes. So if you have let's say 1 trillion of them, you're going to have 2 trillion within 20 minutes. And then you're going to double that within another 20 minutes to 4 trillion. You see, heterotrophs multiply a lot faster to help protect your aquarium. The problem is you need surface area and you need oxygen available to that surface area so they can multiply. So if you have a tank like my tanks, for example, my 90-gallon, the substrate has not been cleaned or anything. There are oxidizers in there breaking that, any insults, any plant leaves, any mum, any uneaten food, fish waste. It's breaking it down into mum. And mum is inert. Okay, it would be like if someone sold you gravel. Okay, it's inert. It's not going to do anything. Mum is not. It's been broken down to its finest infinite particle, like burning wood or cremating a body. The ashes that are left are inert now. They're to this finest particle, and they're not going to do anything anymore. They're not even good for fertilizer. Ashes to wood, if it's burnt completely or anything like that. So that's what I'm trying to say. Mum is inert, so it's not going to hurt anything. It's going to maybe look unsightly. It will add to your substrate. It will allow bacteria to live on it, okay, but it's not going to pollute anymore. It's inert. Like a stone or something like that. It's not going to pollute. It doesn't break down, such as other things like wood, leaves, dying fish, rotting food, fish waste, okay? So that's why I show pictures of people with very high redox, because when they make BCB baskets or when they make plenums and they do it correctly, they have the ability and to facilitate more bacteria within minutes of an insult. And it will stay that way until the insult is gone. But this is why, if you think about it, this is why people like will have several sponge filters, will have a bunch of hang on the back filters. Watch the YouTube videos of people that do that. Substrates that are 6 inches thick. They're trying to achieve large amounts of bacteria, not knowing that, well, first of all, you have to have the food source for the bacteria to even grow. Just because you have the surface area doesn't mean you're going to colonize tons and tons of bacteria if there's not enough food. And you can kind of see this with fish. Did you know that fish school together or make shoals when there's plenty of food? If you do not feed them enough, that shoal or that school will break up. And the reason is it's kind of like every man for himself. There's not enough food for all of us. So in order to keep fish in a shoal and keep them in a school, you must feed them enough so they feel comfortable staying in that school. If you start starving the fish, then they start breaking up that school or shoal because there's not enough food for everybody. And that's how you can know that whether or not they're getting enough food, or if they're scared, of course, they'll be together. But when there's more than enough food, they stay together. Bacteria are kind of like the same way. They're going to multiply as long as there's enough food. If there's not enough food, they're going to not multiply and they're going to die out, and redox will go lower and lower and lower. This is what happens to natural systems. If there's not enough oxygen deep inside the pond or lake, let's say you have a lake or pond that's 10, 20 feet deep, there's not enough oxygen, there's not enough places for the bacteria to live, pretty soon you start getting a pond or lake that starts dying out because the redox down there starts getting lower and lower and disappearing to the point that the whole lake starts dying out or the whole pond starts dying out. And then you start having fish die-offs and algae blooms all over the place because it's not quite, a ecosystem, a biotope that is in unison with each other. Because you can have a big, huge lake, but if you don't have enough bacteria to take care of everything, the lake can't collapse. So this is the balancing act that we're trying to get with our aquariums. We're trying to get where we have the ability and facilitate that ability to have heterotrophic bacteria multiply as quickly as they can when insalts come. And this is what keeps your redox high. So, two things that can do it is ozone, or don't use ozone, and oxygen can raise it. Make sure you have the correct kind of filtration that can facilitate the correct kind of bacteria. We do not just use nitrosomatis or nitrobacteria. We just don't use those two bacteria to complete the nitrogen cycle. We use other bacteria, and there's a lot of bacteria that we use, facultative bacteria, and so on, to do denitrification. And I think I explained that's in the wastewater management course, that we go into anoxic conditions to finish the nitrogen cycle. So we have bacteria covering all the bases in our aquarium. Once you can't make all that bacteria, which is the nitrogen cycle, which they say, well, then you have to do water changes or add more and more plants, which some people can't do that. That's when you start having redox problems, or that's when you can even have a tank crashing or a lot of algae problems in your aquarium. So I hope that kind of explains it to everybody. I hope I explained it clear enough, and I hope I answered Scott's question for him, because I did think it was interesting that everybody should hear it. Anyhow, please subscribe to my channel if you enjoy this kind of content that I'm trying to give you, trying to educate you, trying to help you out, trying to do tests myself. I know there's lots of channels out there if you want to learn about fishies, little fish, big fish. There's lots of channels out there that you can get all that information about fish. And I didn't want to become redundant and just repeat what they're repeating, because no one's going to watch it. They're going to say, I can find out about guppies, I can find out about tetras, I can find from another station. I don't need to watch yours. There's too many out there. So I try to teach people more about filtration and how to have good filtration and how to have an aquarium like my goldfish aquarium, the 90-gallon aquarium, the antique aquarium where it's running off of 100% BCB basket. I try to show people and have them learn that there are other ways of doing things. And I notice a lot of people that do come to my channel and all of a sudden change over are people that had problems in the past with their aquariums, with substrate being directly on the bottom of the aquarium, and have failed. So anyhow, if you like this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel, and like everybody says, if you hit the bell, then you'll be notified when I make videos. I do try to make videos at least twice a week on something that I find that could be interesting, or things that people may write, or photographs that I get from people to help other people say, hey, I can do that too. Anyhow, until next time, this is Dr. Novak. Thank you very much for listening, and happy fish keeping.